Hello mathematicians! Today we're going to be learning about decimals, more specifically about comparing decimals less than 1. To get us started, let's first go over our equality and inequality symbols. Firstly, we have our equal sign, which just means equal to, meaning the two numbers on both ends are equivalent to each other. Then we have our greater than symbol, which means that the first value we're given is greater than our second value. And finally, we have our less than symbol, which means that the first value we're given is less than our second value. To get us started, we have 4/10 and we have 5/10. And in order to compare these numbers, we're going to line them up so that our decimals are lined up. Okay, so here notice that our decimal points are right above each other, so they're lined up. And then we're going to start comparing with the greatest place value and moving on as necessary. So in our greatest place value, which is ones in this case, we have 2 zeros, so we can't really compare them because they're the same. So we're going to move on to the tenths place value, where we have a 4 and a 5. And we know that 4 is less than 5, so that makes 4/10 less than 5/10. So here we have another example where we have 70 hundredths and 92 hundredths. And in order to compare these, we're going to line them up so our decimal points are lined up, as we have below. Then we're going to start with the greatest place value and compare. In the ones place value, we have 2 zeros, so we can't really compare that, so we're going to move on to the tenths place value, where we have a 7 and a 9. Now we know that 7 is less than 9, making 78 hundredths less than 92 hundredths. So here we have another example where we have 62 hundredths and 6/10. Now, in order to compare these, we have to line up our decimal points and then start comparing using the biggest place value, which is ones. But in the ones place value, we have 2 zeros, so we're going to move on to the tenths place value. Here, we have 2 sixes, so then we're going to move on to the hundredths place value, where we have a 2 and then nothing below it. What we could do is add a 0 as a place value holder because 6/10 is equivalent to 60 hundredths, and then compare. And then we know that 2 is greater than 0, making 62 hundredths greater than 6/10. Finally, we have 800 thousandths and 8/10, and in order to compare them, we have to line up our decimal points and then start comparing with the ones place. So in the ones place value, we have 2 zeros, so we can't really compare those, so we're going to move on. In the tenths place value, we have 2 eighths, so we can't really compare that because they're the same, so we're going to move on to the hundredths place value, where we have a 0 and nothing below it. So what we're going to do is add a 0 as a place value holder and then compare. Well, 0 and 0 are the same, so we're going to move on to the thousandths place value, where we just have a 0 again, so we're going to add another 0 as a place value holder. Now, we have the exact same value above and below, so that means that 800 thousandths is equal to 8/10, because we could just keep adding zeros at the end without changing the value. And that's it for comparing decimals that are less than 1.